It's impossible to remember President Bush without thinking of his terrific family. He was the patriarch of perhaps the most enduring political family in American history. And joining me now to remember this president is one of President Bush's longtime friends who was at his bedside when he passed away Friday night. It's the former Secretary of State, James Baker. Mr. Secretary, welcome back, sir.
Thank you, Chuck.
First of all, my condolences to you. You've shared, I know this was your best friend. How are you holding up? How's the family holding up?
Well, we're doing okay. I had a sort of tough time yesterday, but we're doing fine, and I'm comforted, Chuck, by the way in which 41 was called to heaven. He had a very gentle passing. He had, of course, a wonderful life, 94 years, oldest former president ever, and was such a beautiful human being. And his the last day was something really sort of special. He ended up talking to his children in those last hours. You know, they say when someone's passing away, the sense that they never lose is the sense of hearing. So they got all of his children on the phone. One of his sons was there with us, Neil, his son Neil. But they got the others on the phone, and the last words the 41st President of the United States ever said were to the 43rd President when he said, I love you, because 43 had called in to tell his father goodbye and tell him how much he loved him. So it was a very, very sweet scene.
You spent a lot of time with him, especially in the last few months. What were those conversations like between Bake and Hefe, as the two of you, I guess, love to call each other?
Yeah, well, I started calling him Hefe after we were involuntarily retired from public service in 1993 because I wasn't going to call him George that much. I'd been calling him Mr. President. Hefe, of course, is for Chief. I went over there the day he died. Early in the morning, he'd had 3 days he hadn't gotten out of bed, and he'd had a very bad Thursday. And then this last Friday, I went over there at 7:15 in the morning. I live right near to see how he was doing. And one of his aides said, "Mr. President, Secretary Baker's here." And he looked up. He opened both eyes. He looked at me. He said, "Where are we going?" And I said, "We're going to heaven, Hefe." And he said, "That's where I want to go." During the course of the day, my wife, Susan, was there, and she went over and kissed him on the forehead, and he said, "We really love you, Hefe. We love you very much." He looked at her, and he said, "You better hurry up." So he kept his sense of humor and his spirit till the very end. Mm-hmm. And what a beautiful, wonderful human being he was, Chuck.
He seemed to... unlike others who lose in political life, he didn't have a bitterness about it. Explain that.
Well, the loss was really hard for him in '92, but you know, he I guess realized that you win some, you lose some. He didn't get bitter. He was not that kind of person. He was a very warm, caring, compassionate, generous person who was always so thoughtful and kind to others. And that's the way he was in victory, and that's the way he was in defeat. He never took credit for anything. He could have taken credit for a lot of things during his life, but he didn't do that. Those are some of the values that he was brought up with.
We know he didn't like to talk about the L word, legacy. So I leave it to you. What's the legacy you want him most remembered for?
Well, I think that no doubt but what he will be remembered as our most successful one-term president, and perhaps the most one of the most successful presidents of all time. His presidency, while it was only 4 years, was extraordinarily consequential, Chuck. Mm-hmm. If you look at what happened in the world and the way he managed that, the way he managed the end of the Cold War so that it ended with a whimper and not with a bang was really incredible. And look at the other things along the way, the unification of Germany and peace as a member of NATO, the coalition he put together to reverse Iraq's aggression in Kuwait, ending the wars in Central America, which had been the holy grail of both the left and the right, and there's so many others. So he'll be well remembered by history.
You know, it's
and well treated by history.
It's interesting to know that there was a G20 that was held, and there wasn't a G20 when you guys were in power. Back then, it was just the G7. But the idea, the building and reinforcement of these multi-international organizations to keep the peace, Truman and Eisenhower built them, and it seems as if you guys reinforced them after the Cold War. He'd have loved the G20, wouldn't he have?
Well, I don't know about that. We certainly used them, and my own personal view has always been that a group of 20 nations is a little bit unwieldy.
That's true.
In fact, I was fortunate enough, Chuck, to work with the G5 when I was Treasury Secretary for Ronald Reagan. And the fewer countries you have, the more likely you're going to get something done that's productive. So I'm not so sure I would have been for the G20. In fact, I know I wouldn't have been.
Well, I will leave it there. By the way, I've got a familiar face sitting at my table here that I'm about to speak to about the president here. So, Secretary Baker, would you like to say something to Vice President Cheney?
Yeah, no, I want you to ask him how his duck hunt was in the second week in November. Ask him if he had a good duck hunting partner when he last went duck hunting. That's all.
You got it.
I had a great partner, but he shot all the birds.
Oh.
No, that's not true. We had a great hunt. We had a wonderful hunt.
All right, well, I'll let you guys resolve that down the road. Secretary Baker,
okay.
I will let you go. Thanks for sharing a few moments with us this morning. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Chuck.